Hello everyone, I am Russ Frushtick. I am joined by Justin McElroy, and we have a very special day for you because it is the end of E3 Day 1, but not really because E3 has sort of been going on for the last 3 days anyway.
3 days. It lasts for 3 months.
But this is what we call Day 1. Justin, how are you feeling after Day 1? I'm really tired because it's been 3 days.
I don't get tired, Russ.
No?
No, I'm a big tough guy, and I don't get tired.
Really?
And because of my long residency and my position as a co-founder of the site, and the fact that the boss likes me, I don't do much in terms of the actual work of the. I'm more of a creative.
Okay.
You know.
Sure. A lot of couches, a lot of resting.
Mm-hmm. Naps.
Okay.
Naps aplenty.
Naps. So you didn't see any video games the last few days?
No. There were some. I caught up with some magazines.
Yeah. Okay.
That I've been meaning to read.
Any good ones?
Game Informer.
Oh, love Game Informer.
Yeah, love Game Informer. They're great. And
cool.
Cool.
Well, guess what? I wanted to talk about some video games because I saw some press conferences and all that stuff. And I kind of wanted to get your take as well as someone else's take on who won press conference day.
Okay.
I guess multiple days, right?
Okay.
Because it was Sunday and then Monday. So who had the very best?
Who won?
Press conference across everyone, and we've brought in a very special guest to discuss that very special topic, Mr. Chris Grant. Welcome.
Whoa, welcome to the show, big man.
Wow, great welcome. Thank you, guys.
Chris Grant, no nuance. Who won? Who lost? Who should be fired out of a cannon?
I think
That's our 3 rankings that we have.
I think everyone kind of knows I think the broad consensus. Sony won.
Right.
Again.
Right.
And I think in terms of who should be fired out of cannon, I think there's a line, and I think there's probably going to be a little bit of jostling for who gets to get shot out first.
Right.
I think Ubisoft probably can get shot out of a cannon.
Really?
I disagree.
Yeah, I don't know about that. That's interesting.
Wait, okay, let me ask you this. We should qualify this.
Okay.
Are we counting Nintendo? I mean,
Yes, and then Nintendo as the Nintendo.
Okay.
But Nintendo didn't do a press conference.
Let's do a rundown for people that maybe have forgotten or blanked it out of their heads. All the companies that had press conferences, and we are not counting the PC Gamer Show because that's not a company. Mm-hmm. We have the EA press conference. That was the first presser.
Kicked it off. Very iterative, I would say.
Well, not only that, EA went on for like extended periods of time about games that won't arrive for another 5 years.
Yeah,
like a bunch of Star Wars stuff that we won't see for a while.
Yeah,
but I still think that stuff's exciting. I see, a little sneak peek at an X-Wing VR game, right? Like a little sneak peek at Visceral Star Wars game, and like that stuff's.
That's not. It's just dudes working at a computer. That's not a sneak peek.
This is Russ and This is our new rule that we decided during our stream. Like, if your trailer at any point includes a shot of somebody working at a computer, you're not ready to show your game.
Unless it's like a hacking game and people actually have in the game have to work at computers. I think that's allowed.
Save it for the special features.
So speaking of hacking games, I think I think Ubisoft let some of the wind out of its sails, and they had a long press conference. Went over
2 hours.
Yeah, I think Watch Dogs.
Crazy.
That's maybe a part of my frustration with it because I see press conferences that go on forever, and I'm just like, oh, enough. But they also, I think they actually had a pretty strong Watch Dogs 2 showing last week.
Yeah.
On a Twitch reveal. Watch Dogs 1 is a game that I would have gladly put into a cannon and launched into the sun.
Yeah, not a good
Did
game.
not expect Watch Dogs 2 to be impressive, and that reveal that they did on Twitch was really impressive.
Yeah.
And so like the fact that that wasn't at their press conference, I think took some of the wind out of it.
It wasn't their press conference.
No, I mean that it wasn't revealed there.
Oh,
took some of the wind out of it.
Yeah, but they had their own little special day where everyone was just focused on that. I understood the logic behind it. I think Ubisoft, without a doubt, stole the show just because of their opening number.
Which is fantastic.
I wish we had the B-roll. Hopefully people can look online and show it.
It's just an awesome dancing clown French circus.
There was a giraffe at one point.
Yeah, you love that.
Clowns, all in favor of Just Dance. And Justin and I were talking after we were watching. It's like, you look at all the other opening to all these other presidents. It's like, here's our sizzle reel of badass stuff that we're putting out. And then Ubisoft has a bunch of people skipping on stage and grooving out.
God,
It's so good.
I will say this about Ubisoft: they still have H. Taylor coming every year, doing a great job, and there's a levity to it. That's
Literally every host, including all the CEOs and everybody, the best person doing this today.
spoiler alert. She's better at hosting than a bunch of CEOs.
Yeah.
Well,
big
yeah,
shock.
that shouldn't be a surprise, but it is certainly an irregularity if you look at all tech
But think
keynotes
about
across the
how long
world.
it took Ubisoft to get to that point. They had Jamie Kennedy was their.
John County did a decent job, but he's going to keep the whole thing at arm's reach. They had Mr. Caffeine. Like, if you want to point at somebody.
Wow, that was a treat. Yeah, I mean, I think Ubisoft just went on too long. I think that they had some good stuff in there, and then they filled it way too much and really just like outstayed.
The longest press conference out of all of them.
Yep.
Pretty amazing.
Unless you count the Big N. Unless you count Nintendo.
Yeah, I wouldn't actually count the Big N in that group. We haven't mentioned Bethesda, which we kind of skipped right by.
Yeah.
Bethesda
did not have a ton of stuff to show, but Quake was a surprise.
I disagree. I mean,
You think they had a ton of stuff to show?
They had a lot more concrete stuff than EA.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I mean, like, Quake was new.
Quake was brand new. No one expected it.
Dishonored was a huge demo that I didn't watch because
I don't want to be spoiled on Dishonored. I'm sure it was very lovely.
Did it look good?
Yeah, it looked really good.
Yeah.
Bethesda had
We had Dishonored 2, as you mentioned, Prey.
Prey.
So it was the reboot of Prey.
Prey, Prey looks really, really interesting, and it's a game that like even almost less so than Prey 2 has nothing to do with Prey. I don't know why they have the name.
Prey-O-Shock.
Yeah, it's like okay, you bought
Like that Prey-O-Shock, Justin?
I'm just gonna let it.
Okay.
I'll pick it up on the way out.
They bought the IP a while ago, and like it's been such a troubled project getting this thing made, and they finally have a game that looks good, and they're like, well, we got to use this name for something.
I don't know if the game looks good, though. That wasn't a game. What we saw was not a game.
Yeah, no.
It looked pre-rendered, and
it was very target rendered.
Yeah.
I like the vibe, though. I mean,
It looked cool vibe.
I like what they were
cool
going
vibe.
for.
Kind of like a Total Recall thing. It wasn't
like
crazy.
a weird, like half Solaris, half Groundhog Day kind of vibe.
Oh, yes.
Beginning, which,
Yeah,
like,
for
man,
sure.
That's,
Yeah.
Speaking my language.
And they had that ESO card game, which is a thing.
Yeah.
And I believe, it's a little bit of news here and there.
They had some cool VR announcements. Fallout 4 in VR in 2017 on HTC Vive.
Yeah, we hopefully will have some folks that are out now, and not today, but tomorrow we'll have some folks on that have actually played Fallout VR as well as some of the other VR experiences.
Skyrim HD.
Skyrim HD, which is cool. You know, I'm due for more Skyrim.
Yeah. Todd Howard said later on Jeff Keighley's interview show that they are making an Elder Scrolls 6. It will be the year 2022.
Yeah.
He was joking, I think. I don't think he was serious.
No, he was serious?
Serious.
Oh, no. So long.
Todd.
Typical Todd Howard. Have we hit all the... Oh, and we haven't even talked about Sony yet, which I think we all agree.
Microsoft.
Microsoft. Okay, you're right. So Microsoft had... So Microsoft was a weird one because while we were watching it, our stream cut out. So we missed a large chunk of it. So we're relying on you, Chris Grant,
so
to fill in some of the blanks.
Did a really good job. I think that they have a very hard message to get out there, which is that they announced a new version of an existing console, and then another new version of an existing console that won't be out until next year. And like, I think it's a tough message to communicate. There's the Xbox One S, which is a smaller version of the Xbox One, but it actually also has new features. It comes with a new controller. It has 4K video. It has HDR video support. Like, okay.
Yeah.
It'll also make
better resolutions, and
it can help your games run better.
Yeah.
And not necessarily at higher resolution, but it'll help them keep their frame rate. And some games will also regulate their resolutions if they need to. It'll keep the frame rate higher.
We'll see. We'll see. That is what they're saying, but I'm a little skeptical.
At least for Gears 4. And then there's Scorpio, which they announced this year for release next fall. And like, that's a really weird...
Did they say fall?
They said next year.
I cannot I literally can't fathom the consumer who is like, I'm gonna buy. Yeah, this is the moment before I know what the other thing is or how much it costs or anything. This is but I do know it is coming.
No, I think there's a casual audience that maybe will go for the cheaper box, like now, maybe. But
the price on the boxes.
Yeah.
Like.
But if you're somebody who has waited this long, like, you're obviously not just waiting on a price drop. Like, you're probably also waiting to see like how things pan out. And until you see what like the support looks like in a Scorpio world, like, why would you hop on now?
I'd say counterpoint. If you're waiting to see how things pan out, I think that that ship done sailed. You're going to get a PlayStation.
Well, okay.
I think they need to get back some of their leadership position, or at least a claim to a leadership position. And so I think they absolutely understand, in some ways it's a really smart move, that the S is important to getting them there, but even more important is Scorpio. They need to have a box that is competitive. And I think the Xbox One might have had some big ideas in it, including Kinect as a big idea. The Xbox One S doesn't even have a Kinect port.
Wop wop.
You can get a $50 adapter if you don't have a Kinect. And obviously, if you have a Kinect, they'll give you an adapter for free. But like, they don't expect. I don't think they expect anyone to go out there and buy a Kinect and hook it up to their Xbox One S.
You ever wonder what the bottom of an Avatar shoe looks like? Now you'll never know. That secret has been relocked for time.
So I think Microsoft.
Where is the software for Microsoft? Where would you say, Gears is obviously a big exclusive for them.
Yep.
Forza was another exclusive they showed off.
Halo Wars 2.
Halo Wars 2, which I don't know that is a huge exclusive, but maybe people
they
care.
also announced this Xbox Play Anywhere initiative, which is it's sort of related to the Scorpio.
Sure.
This idea that your games are persistent. They're persistent not only across Xbox One, One S, and Scorpio, but also persistent to Windows 10.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I think, they have a lot to prove here with that idea. If that idea works, this is Microsoft as a software company putting software first and platforms first. Microsoft's been making consistent software platforms for decades. Sony hasn't been.
Yeah.
And I think this is a way for them to really make a claim and kind of carve a path of their own that Sony won't be able to match.
Yeah.
And they started doing this with Xbox 360 back compat. And now if that kind of also moves into Xbox One games, being forwards compatible with Scorpio games, being compatible with your Windows, and maybe even Windows games backwards onto console, they're creating an ecosystem play.
Yeah.
That's like, for me, as somebody who in the last 4 years has moved over to PC gaming almost exclusively, in large part because the new consoles got announced and said, hey, your old games won't work. Sorry. And it's like, I spent thousands of dollars on those games.
Yeah.
Like, I think I'm done.
Yeah.
I think that's a big deal, and I think that to me really resonates. But they got to do it,
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I think
Right,
there's
right.
still a lot of
Yeah,
stuff.
especially after the big F up of Xbox One, they need to. You can't just assume.
And then to sort of almost the flip side, an inverse of what we saw with Microsoft, you see Sony, which is just talking games. They're not talking about new hardware. They're talking about the games that they have coming. And for me, for my personal what I get excited about while I'm watching a press conference, that's the kind of thing that gets me excited. We saw God of War.
Yeah.
If you had told me I was going to be that impressed and enthused about a new God of War game,
It looked super wicked.
It looked awesome.
Again, we were talking about how do you reboot a franchise and make it interesting and make it feel like something different? And we saw that Gears demo, Gears 4, which looked fine and okay, but it was Gears, very familiar, very looked. But you look at this God of War game, and it doesn't look like anything God of War like.
God of War. So they made me care about God of War game, which I played the first one, I liked it a lot, and that was it. Good. So good job there. There was they also had Resident Evil 7.
Yep.
Which wow, you made Resident Evil interesting again. Shortcut to my heart, make it like PT. All right, you got me.
Now,
It's game of the year.
Capcom probably made it interesting again, but still.
Yes, but
Right.
but Sony had a press conference where they were almost reclaiming some of this stuff. But back to Sony, Guerrilla Games.
Right.
Known for making such hits like Killzone and the other Killzone game.
That
and
I
Killzone.
absolutely hate.
And then they
But
did
this game is totally.
Horizon Zero. Yeah, they
well,
first
this
showed
is
it off,
Resident Evil 7.
Resident
but yeah.
Evil 7, which looks fantastic. We played the demo today. It was very, very
There's
cool.
a video actually of on our Facebook of Justin playing it in a spooky dark room.
Spooky dark room.
And he got scared.
That was a little spooky at the end.
Horizon Zero Dawn, though, they showed off at E3 last year. They
Yep.
showed off a much bigger demo this year, and it looks amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
it literally looks amazing,
Yeah.
just visually, and it's finally it makes me feel so good that the team at Guerrilla is able to put their obvious talents into something that I actually want to look at.
Yeah, we're gonna have Tara on the stream in a little bit to talk. She checked it out today, so that's very, very cool.
And also big VR stuff from Sony.
Tons of VR stuff.
The Batman VR thing, whatever that may be. The Star Wars VR, Criterion level for Star Wars for VR. Final Fantasy in VR, which, okay, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
And even Resident Evil 7 can be played in
yeah,
VR.
for sure. Fully VR, which is rad. This looked great.
It just felt like there was no dead time during that Sony press conference. It was okay, enough already. Let's move on.
I'll tell you what they didn't have. They didn't have and now let us tell you about our TV studio that's making Powers in 20 minutes.
Right.
It was
smart.
It was,
A lot of these companies feel like they have an onus to give every section their little credit, but Sony knows you're making an entertainment hour or 2 hours, whatever it is. Make it all peak level. Don't just make your
I want to talk about my
whatever.
two favorite parts.
Okay.
One, Sean Layden comes back on stage, and they give him the Crash Bandicoot shadow.
Yes.
It's just like it's a level of showmanship.
Justin got so excited about Crash Bandicoot.
Cool.
He lost his mind.
I don't even like Crash Bandicoot games that much.
It was so cool.
So it's so well. That's like finger on the pulse. Like that is exactly what people like in their darkest corners of their discussion. Like you don't think it couldn't be Crash Bandicoot. That's great. I love seeing that. The respect for your history and the awareness of that sense of nostalgia is really cool.
I also liked I think the big finale, although it was actually I think there's an interesting finale for Sony's, but the big finale was the announcement of Death Stranding,
right?
The new Kojima project, which had an absolutely bizarre, fantastic teaser video.
So amazing.
This was the one misstep, and the rest and I were like obsessed with that Sony had in the press conference. They get Kojima out on stage, right? Make a glowing pillar of light for him to descend down like an angel of video games.
Yeah,
and he's
amazing.
like, Death Stranding, my boy Norman Reedus. And Norman Reedus like floats down on a crane. He's like, what's up? I'm in it too. And
I just had a baby.
I just had a baby. I'm like, and everybody's losing their mind. Like, this is the best. And then they're like, Spider-Man PS4. And for me, I was like, oh shit, they saved the best for last. I understand not everyone is going to feel that way.
Yeah.
And it was like, and then they did a gameplay demo. It's like, guys, that's not even
They had their encore. Like that was where you walk out. You drop your mic on that.
So I'm sure that look at the Spider-Man.
The
Spider-Man looks very cool.
So good. And not just good for Spider-Man, it's good for what it represents. It represents Marvel's talking a lot about a move back into games.
Making real games.
And trying to reclaim like real actual games, which is awesome.
The especially if you're my age, you remember like Marvel used to have like the best arcade games. You go to the arcade and just play Captain America, play X-Men. So that finale felt like me after the whole entire show. This great show. They also had Days Gone. Premiere the new Sony Ben game. And at the end of all this big thing, they're like, okay, now we're gonna just show you this gameplay demo for 5 minutes. It just felt like such a downer, and Arthur tweeted.
It looked good. Like it looked
great.
really cool. It's just like
just was not the right pacing.
That's not your pacing.
Arthur tweeted, he's like, this is the spot where they took their next gen console reveal out. Like,
wow.
Oh yeah. Well, maybe that could be it.
But still, you just
It's for the
switch
Neo
them.
was. Yeah, it was weird. It was a weird choice.
It's weird. I don't know.
And then Nintendo. We're about to talk about Zelda in the next segment, so we won't go super in depth. Nintendo didn't really have a press conference. They essentially just turned the cameras on for 12 hours and showed the same area of Zelda for a very long time.
These poor Nintendo employees Phantom Zone-like in one area of Zelda and let them never return to
Well, there was
the
also a TED Talk about Pokemon for about an hour that everyone had to watch.
I will say this. You guys don't get to Zelda. I'll say this as somebody who I had cats named Link and Zelda. Loved the Zelda franchise. Man, I have not enjoyed the last 10 years of Zelda games.
Yeah.
Super didn't like
Well,
them.
come on, the 3DS game was good.
The 3DS one was excellent.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of ones that I really did not like.
Yeah.
And so they made a Zelda game that, like, the stuff I've been complaining about Zelda games for years, like Zelda 1 was mysterious and weird, and you didn't hold hands and you just let them do it. And that's like what was so exciting to me as a kid. Dark Souls gives me that. But like, Zelda games are like, hey, you got a butterfly. Hey, you got another butterfly. Do you know how butterflies work? Like, I'm going to throw this game out a window.
Yeah.
And it seems like they're making a game for me again. So you guys are going to get Nick, who's going to come and talk Zelda.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, thank you so much for joining us. Clearly, we've declared Sony the winner, and everyone else
Sony.
can be shot out of a cannon.
Congratulations, everybody. Sean Layden, everybody. Congratulations. Your trophy is in the lobby.
Good work, folks.
Congratulations, Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. Bye.
Justin, are you excited for the next segment?
I'm excited because the one thing that this day has not been filled with for me is literally 5 hours of Zelda on a TV blaring in my ear while we try to get.
You know what you haven't had?
What's that?
Is an individual on the line, an individual named Nick Robinson, who may or may not have played Zelda today. You were watching the video, you were saying, hey, I want to reach out into this video and say, guys, talk to me about what it was like for you personally to play Zelda, Treehouse employees. No, we're going to have Nick Robinson on the line. Maybe now? Nick?
Hey.
Hey, there he is.
Hey, Nick.
The future is now. Hey, buddy.
Hey, how's it going?
Really good.
Really good.
I heard a rumor you're looking for someone who has played The Legend of Zelda.
Please tell me you are one of those people.
I am one of those people. I have played, I think a conservative estimate would say 100 minutes of that game.
That's a lot of time.
That's so many minutes.
Did people try to kick you off?
Up on youtube.com/Polygon sometime tonight with about like 50 plus of those minutes that we'll be able to share with people. But yeah, ask me anything about The Legend of Zelda.
Okay, well, we should also mention, like, that's awesome. People should definitely watch our gameplay video. It is ridiculous because Nintendo literally streamed like 19 hours today.
Right.
But we got super bored watching that, so there's a whole lot of questions we have for you.
For sure. First of all, Russ, let me tell you, I don't think Nintendo reps play Zelda the way I play Zelda, because the way I play Zelda is I immediately take all of Link's clothes off.
Yes.
Yes.
And then I fire a flame arrow directly into the air and just watch it arc through the air for about 45 seconds, where it lands in a field of grass, and then I pull out a torch and I light my torch with that flaming field of grass, and then I throw it at an orc, trying to damage him, but instead what it does is it hits him and his friend and lights their clubs on fire, and then they begin chasing me down with their now flaming clubs. It's my fault that they're on fire. They're now flaming, and I start running away. Every interaction I had with that game was just so weirdly procedural in a way that I am not used to from Zelda. Like, weird interactions popping up constantly. One great example of that would be, I found this sort of leaf weapon, and I was like, can I even fight with this? Like, what does this do? Went up to an enemy, hit him with the leaf weapon. He dropped his sword and shield, which was great because I had just broken my shield by surfing down a mountain with it. Grabbed his shield and then used it to fight him. Like, you can knock weapons out of enemies' hands doing stuff like that. And like, there's so many tiny things like that that are just weird, unpredictable, surprisingly physics-driven things happening in that game.
Chris Grant was just talking about the fact that a lot of the recent Zelda games have been like very guided, lots of cutscenes, lots of like grabbing you by the nose and being like, "This is a chicken. You can float over pits with a chicken." Right. So, how much, like, did you see any cutscenes, or was it all just like straight gameplay, or?
Yeah, so I played sort of two demos, the first of which just kind of dumped me into the open world, and the second one began in that same open world, but it opened the way that trailer opened, with Link sort of waking up in that weird Minority Report water dome and then meeting that old man. And there were cutscenes there, interestingly, I think they're all real time because, again, immediately took Link's shirt off, went into the cutscene, and his costume was reflected in all those cutscenes. But no, it was like very little cutscenes, very little narrative. Something that I think you probably picked up on while watching like a billion hours of Treehouse streaming it is that when you pick up an item, there's not this gigantic bubble of text in the screen with slow text that like you have to watch it spell out. Like, you picked up 5 rupees. Yeah. 5 rupees is the same thing as getting 1 rupee. There's none of that. It's just this very like, you can just pick something up, hit A. I found some chili peppers at one point that, like, when I ate them, would keep me from getting cold and taking damage in a cold area, which was great because, again, I was naked. And the first time I picked one of those up, I knocked it off a plant that had like 7 of them. And by rapidly hitting A after the first one, it just picked them all up really quickly. Didn't make me read that message a billion times. Yeah. It felt like it hews closer to maybe Link Between Worlds in terms of being a streamlined Zelda experience, and maybe even further down that road, away from over-explaining itself and towards like Dark Souls. I know that's a weird comparison, but like the level of experimentation and mystery about this world, and like I was doing stuff during the demo, and the rep standing by my side was like, I've never seen anybody attempt that weird trick you just did before. Like, I tried to survive jumping off a tower by using my shield to catch me. It didn't work. Link broke his legs immediately, ragdoll. But yeah, the part that we played, I think there were maybe 2 missions that you could go to, 2 sort of puzzly dungeons, and those were neat, but I really focused on exploring this big, weird open world because that is the coolest part. It's a very literal sandbox. It's a kind of a playground.
How much pre-established, like you mentioned the thing about rupees, right? That's like known. Like, how much pre-established like Zelda beats, you know, did you experience?
There was the old man that gives you the sword, right? He's from Zelda 1.
Mm-hmm. And one of the options, the dialogue options, I don't know if this was in the Treehouse stream, was he was like, "What are you going to do with that torch you just picked up?" And one of the options was like, "It's a secret," which I think probably it's a secret to everyone. Cute. But no, like it didn't really capitalize that much on my knowledge of Zelda. And as a matter of fact, my preconceived notions about Zelda kind of got me in trouble in a couple spots. The controls are are almost entirely reimagined. You're still doing a Z targeting equivalent with the left trigger, but that's also now shielding. You always have the bow and arrow on
You
your
can
right.
jump, right?
There's a jump button, which is wild.
Pretty
so, like,
crazy.
For example, that iconic move of like Link doing a downward slash off a ledge.
Yeah.
You now seeing forward and
How was
jump
that?
and hitting. That was pretty good. You pull that off by jumping off a ledge with the jump button and then pressing the sword button, which is not the way it's traditionally worked. So likewise, there's no. Maybe I've watched too many speedruns lately, but the notion of constantly cartwheeling everywhere doesn't really exist in this game either. There's a straight up sprint button that you use for sprinting that has a meter that drains and then refills.
So that's like very so is that stamina like throughout the whole thing, like while climbing and jumping and stuff like that? Your stamina meter goes down like Dark Souls?
Yeah. So climbing drains stamina, but it really quickly refills whenever you're standing still and not running. Running also drains it, and then interestingly, swimming drains it.
That's
so you
science, Nick. You get tired when you swim.
I was watching it happen, and as much as I had tried to streamline the apparel of my Link, he still had like a giant sword and a heavy shield, and then so it kind of made some intuitive sense to me that he couldn't swim infinitely in any direction. But yeah, I don't think you need a ton of Zelda knowledge going into this. And as a matter of fact, the more you can let go of what you think a Zelda game should be like, I think the more able you'll be to experiment and have fun and just mess around with this supremely weird Zelda game.
So I know they were really only showing this one area, the area that we kept seeing, looked gorgeous and like an area I'd want to explore, but looked like pretty similar. Did you get any sense, or did they show off anything else that was like not this forested plains area?
No, we were pretty much constrained to that plains area, which itself was pretty big. And if you go into the minimap and zoom all the way out, I don't know if that's reflective of how big the real game world will be, but it looked absolutely enormous. You could kind of, like at one point I climbed to the top of a church and then hung from the steeple and kind of did some like Assassin's Creed, like hanging from the edge of it while looking around behavior. And then I pulled out the binoculars and started looking at these things in the distance. And even though they're very far away and very grainy, there was like what appeared to be a giant flying, moving, mechanical island or bird in the distance. There's this sort of tower shrouded in darkness that seems like a possible Temple of Time thing. So you could see that stuff in the periphery. Like the game obviously has a pretty tremendous draw distance, but we didn't actually get to go to any of those places. We were kind of reined in.
Nick, compare and contrast your level of like excitement and enthusiasm for this Zelda game before you played the demo and after.
So I think I probably came away more excited having played it than I was when I walked in. I think that the thing that was exciting to me watching that trailer this morning was the very ephemeral, like nostalgic aesthetic stuff. I thought it was really pretty. I thought the music was absolutely gorgeous. But it was getting into that game world and like picking up a stone and then placing it down, which you've been able to do since Ocarina of Time, right? But placing it down and having physics kick in and watch it tumble down a mountain, like that is the stuff that excites me. This is very much this is such a physics game, you guys, that Link basically has. Do you remember the game Psyops?
Yeah.
Have a power. It's called like magnepathy or something, where by pressing the left bumper, I think the L button on the Wii U controller, while you have this power equipped, anything in the environment that's magnetic, you can grab onto by pointing the reticle at it, and then kind of lift it up in the air and move it like on an X, Y, and Z axis.
Wait, he's Magneto. You're saying Link is now Magneto.
Link is Magneto now. And so, like, one example of that was there was this bog surrounded by mud that as soon as I stepped in it, I instantly would die. So I went to a nearby lake where I saw metallic stuff underneath the water, fished out this sort of long metal plank, walked it over to the muddy thing, and was able to use it as a makeshift bridge to go get these two treasure chests in the middle.
That's awesome.
And that was not the only way I could have solved that encounter, too. That's the other cool thing, is like, yeah, it's you digging up treasure chests out of the water, plopping them on the ground, and busting them open is like such a non-Zelda way to get rewarded for something. It's rewarding you in a different way than Zelda does. You're not solving puzzles that have these very linear solutions. You're like making your own fun in a way that feels like it's the first inkling I've gotten in a while that Nintendo is playing other people's games. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, right. And getting the right lessons from them versus like trying to like put their own spin on it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's evident in the kind of immediate Skyrim comparisons people made when they first saw gameplay today. And the fact that there's like even the culture of like crafting and survival games that you see on Steam has eked into it with this whole really robust cooking system. And like in order to cook, you need a pot, but in order to use a pot, you need a fire under it. But in order to do a fire, you need to cut down a tree and get planks out of it. But in order to set that on fire, you need to go find flint. Or you could just find fire arrows or find fire elsewhere in the environment and carry it there. Those things are all interconnected, but they also felt not as daunting or, I guess, as tedious as maybe they do in some of the survival games that are 100% focused on that mechanic.
Did you see any place in the game where, like, after playing it, do you feel like this is something I want to play right now, or like the weird NX version of this is like sort of hanging over this thing? Was that something that you were thinking about, or are you just going to jump right in?
Like, this game could look that much better and more amazing on NX.
So I think actually, because I was thinking about the same question as I was walking in here, and I think my only caveat, like the only real true objectively negative thing I could say about my experience with this game is it was framey as hell.
Oh.
Like lots and lots and lots of frame rate drops. And I think it'll be apparent in the video we're publishing later tonight. But there are some areas where it runs totally smoothly, and there are some areas where it's a little janky. It's a little rough around the edges in a way that I'm not used to from a Nintendo game, and definitely not used to from a Zelda game. And I don't know. It remains to be like part of that. Obviously, this game's not done, not even near done. But like, I don't know. The big question of like, is this game going to be kind of a pared down, janky experience on the Wii U, and then a much better experience on the NX is a very real one. I think not knowing what the NX is, it's impossible to say. Like if the NX ends up being a thing that, for example, doesn't have buttons and is shaped like a donut and has a screen wrapped around it. All three of which are things people have speculated. I maybe don't want to play it on that controller, but I want to play a version of this game that doesn't struggle to keep a decent frame rate.
Yeah, completely. Nick, any closing thoughts on Zelda before we let you go?
Yeah, I think I walked into that not really knowing what to expect, except for that it would be an open world. I didn't know if it would just be walking around this open world, finding random enemies and fighting them, dispatching them, and moving on. I didn't know if it would be a series of really linear puzzles. And what I found was, and maybe this is why this game has taken so long, it's a extremely experimental game, both for Nintendo and for players. You do a lot of experimentation while you're playing it, and it's a very fun place to spend time, not for the reasons previous Zelda games have been, not because you're solving a puzzle or in this build following a narrative, because there barely was one, but because you're just like, what would happen if I like cut this tree in half, rolled it down a mountain, and tried to stand on top of it and like walk backwards cartoon style as it was tumbling away. And I successfully was able to do that. Like, it lets you do that stuff. It lets you climb trees and then try to like scope out an enemy encampment Far Cry style. It lets you wait until 10 p.m. when all of the enemies fall asleep and then try to sneak into their camp and kill them that way. Like, it feels like no part of this game was left untouched. After about a decade of 3D Zelda games that have followed roughly the same formula, is like, it's hard to overstate how kind of refreshing that is. Like, it makes me really excited. Mario games have been making me excited about Nintendo a lot over the past 10 years. Zelda games have not until I played this. I'm really excited for people to get their hands on it.
Great. Nick Robinson, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy.
Stay safe out there. Enjoy it.
Bye, y'all.
That's very. I mean, I'm pumped. I liked what I saw. And saw and just kept seeing. Just kept coming.
Man,
pretty much like the brooms from Fantasia. They just kept pouring in. But that matches what I was expecting, which is like open, not holding your hand, Dark Soulsian, challenging perhaps, like actually like a challenging game, which Zelda hasn't been for a while.
Not a lot of games are challenging for you though, Russ.
I'm really super good at games.
You're just super good at video games.
That's completely reasonable. But yeah, I'm pumped.
It's cool. It's the only thing that's giving me pause is this NX thing, because I felt like the one of the big strikes against Twilight Princess was this idea that it was straddling two platforms.
Was that a strike though?
What?
Who cares?
I care because when you're designing a game that straddles two platforms like this, or not two platforms, two generations.
Yeah.
The question is always going to be in your head: did they what compromises?
Sure.
Were
to get them to work on both.
Especially if we're looking at something where you have to imagine. I mean, like I don't think this is too much of a stretch, but you have to imagine these two games are going to be released somewhat close to each other.
I think they've actually said that it's a simultaneous release on. I think they've said that.
I mean, like if you're doing that,
and they're looking at March for NX. Last I heard.
Well, you got to wonder if they do that. Like, what what compromises did they have to make on this project to not just graphically, but to whatever NX happens to be, to take advantage of that. And I think you definitely see that with the Twilight Princess, which is like there aren't a lot of 2-generation consoles that are like more different than those two are.
Yeah. What if NX is just like a foosball table?
That would be cool, because I like foosball.
Me too.
Yeah, or if it was a pool table.
Yeah, pool table would be fun.
What if NX is just a table where you can play foosball or pool?
You can anything.
Yeah, flip it over.
The world is your oyster. Yeah. You could use it as a boat.
Bumper pool? Do whatever you want with it. It's $2,000.
Justin, we are about to speak to another guest. We should have Allegra on the line, and we're going to be talking about The Last Guardian.
Nobody told us that she's there, so we're just like flying.
Oh yeah, she's there. Okay, rock and roll.
Hey.
This is like, I just leap off the ledge like Assassin's Creed style and hope I land in a bale of hay. And in this case, it's Allegra. Welcome.
Welcome, Allegra.
Oh, glad to be here.
You are coming straight from the show floor. I know you had a very late appointment to see The Last Guardian. And correct me if I'm wrong, you had an interview for The Last Guardian?
Yeah, so actually, like, the last 2 hours of my day have just been totally Last Guardian centric. I talked to the director, which was cool, and then I waited in line for an hour to play the 45-minute demo.
Wait, with the plebs? You were waiting in line with the plebs?
With the plebes, yep.
No! Big mistake. You gotta just push everyone out of the way.
Big time your way.
Big time your way. Yeah. Show that logo.
Not there yet. This is my first day of my first EP. I can't start pushing people around.
How was this your first? Was the interview translated? Yeah. How is that? That's always like that's a tricky thing to.
Where do you look?
To do? Yeah, I never. That is very awkward. That's actually a really good question.
I still don't know where to look. Like, I'm still figuring that part out. I think I spent most of the time looking at the translator, like, very confused. And it was only a half-hour interview, so that's really like a 15-minute interview when it's translated.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What would you say, did anything like surprise you about Last Guardian, whether it was an interview or the playable demo? You went in, obviously you had some preconceived notions based on trailers, stuff like that. Did anything really surprise you about the game?
Strangely, no. So the whole thing feels really familiar. And what he was saying was that, like, obviously it's taken so long for it to come out, but he was saying if he could have his way, we wouldn't have played it today. Like, they're very adamant about not letting anyone touch this thing until it's absolutely ready. And apparently that means, like, letting it sit in development for 9 years. Like, they didn't think there was anything crazy about that it had been, in development for that long. Versus for me, like, when that game was announced, I was in high school.
Don't do this. I can't handle that.
Oh, no.
Seriously, I can't. I can't handle that.
Yeah, that's depressing.
Yeah, it's very sad. I was here. I was literally behind this desk. I've been here the entire time.
I was a little baby in high school, and then today I played it. So, but the thing that surprised me is that it really feels like not a game from 2009, but it doesn't feel like it's changed. Like, it looks the same as it did in that first trailer. It's very similar to both Ico and Shadow of the Colossus in terms of gameplay. Like, it feels like it came out like immediately after those two, which are pretty old at this point.
I mean, you couldn't run this game on a PS3 though. It looks better than that.
Yeah, it did, I guess.
I mean, I'm asking maybe it didn't.
But
are you talking about mechanically or graphically?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty game, but it's not like the most visually impressive game I've seen on the PS4.
Yeah. Sorry. Sorry, I'm reacting just because they're showing the B-roll from the trailer, and while Justin and I were watching this, we're like, we don't want to watch any of this because we don't want to be spoiled. So, like, but I guess we're on a live show now. I have to, like,
yeah, you do have to watch
really be engaged.
I'm worried though it's gonna make me cry. Like, Russ and I talked a lot about crying during the trailer.
Yeah.
Like, it looked like we would probably cry when it does the little shimmy shake at the end. This little number, I want to cry.
Well, and he had like arrows in his face and stuff.
Oh, who would do that?
You spend a ton of the demo like pulling arrows out of his back. That was devastating.
Poor thing. I would just pull him away from one. I don't care what we're supposed to be doing. I'll just be like, let's get out of here, Luck Dragon. Let's go have some of those bullies and leave.
So the thing that's funny is, like, I think all of Team Ico's games are pretty depressing. Like, they're pretty sad games.
Yeah.
But the director was pretty adamant that this one's going to be a funny game. Like, compared to the other two, it's going to be a lot happier. And I was like,
until they kill the cat dog.
And Anton Chekhov thought Three Sisters was a comedy. Like, he doesn't get to make that decision.
That is funny, though. I mean, everything that we've seen so far, like, there's been moments of, like, cuteness in the trailers and stuff, but this, like, half of it is, like, this cat dog's about to die, is falling off a cliff and like barely saving you.
So like mechanically, what's the interaction like between you and cat dog?
Is it just like all AI controlled, the cat dog bird?
It's kind of similar to Ico. So you can climb on it and, you can interact with its body. You can ride it around. But you can't really control it. You can't really maneuver it. So you can call it to come to you, but it really has its own, mind. So I was trying to get it to like take me to a ledge so I could jump up higher, so I could get the leverage from standing on its head. But it just did not want to. Like, it was just like, nah, screw you. I'm gonna do my thing. And I was like, this is not how games work. You do what I tell
Have you played Seaman? This is exactly how games work.
Basically, Seaman. It's Seaman.
Anything else that you learned from the interview that you were surprised about, or like, does he feel depressed that it's finally done and coming out? Like,
yeah, they said that they feel relieved, but they're also still working on it. Like, they seriously said, like, we hope it makes the promised date. I'm like, guys, this needs to come out. You've committed now. Like, you need to just say it's done. Just step away.
Yeah.
Let us play it, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm dying to play it, and everything I've seen so far has been.
I'm not gonna play it.
Yeah.
It made me want to cry.
Yeah, it's like the beginning of Up. Well, Allegra, any closing thoughts before we let you go?
I think this game's going to be really great. Like, I've missed these sorts of games, like these moody puzzle adventure type games. Like, playing it today really reminded me of that time in my life where I just played a lot of Shadow of the Colossus, and I miss games like that. So I'm actually like so jazzed that this is finally going to be out this year.
Not to put you on the spot, 30 seconds. How is E3 comparing to what you thought it would be like so far?
It's pretty cool. I'm still a big fan.
Okay, well, good to know, Allegra. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Allegra.
I remember, avoid the Galaxy Court. It's overpriced bruschetta pizza. You need to go out to the middle where the food trucks are. That's the good stuff.
Pro move. Thanks, Allegra.
Remember, hand sanitizer. Oh God, we lost.
Too late.
It's too
She's
late.
gone.
Just text her hand sanitizer.
I will. Yeah, I'm very excited about Last Guardian. It's one of those games that I don't want to see literally anything else. I'm done. I want to stop looking at it, and I just want to play it. Lock me in a room. I realize it goes counter to my job, but like, stop.
How was Shadow of the Colossus?
Great. Are you serious? You didn't play that game?
I played like half of it, and
Oh
then
my
I was like,
God.
I get it. You hold the sword up, and then you go to the thing,
And you go, oh,
step.
and your horse comes to you?
And
Oh.
then you step. I did like 4 of them. Is there more than 4?
I don't even know if you're joking right now.
I saw the movie Rain Over Me, and I feel like I'm pretty much
Yeah, you pretty much got it.
Pretty much got it.
You skipped ahead in the
That's a
DVD
deep cut
commentary.
for all my Rain Over Me heads out there.
Don Cheadle, represent. So that was Last Guardian, and next up we have Julia in studio. Welcome.
Julia Alexander, welcome.
And we are going to talk about Pokemon.
Yes, we are.
Because we already suffered through an hour-long demo of Pokemon through the lens of Treehouse.
Suffer is a strong word. We were blessed with an hour-long gameplay demo.
I feel like a lot of people were kind of there just to see Zelda. Yeah, the weird thing is I'm a Pokemon fan. I like Pokemon.
A Pokemaniac.
A Pokemaniac. It's not, I know how the Pokedex works. Like, I know what Poplio probably looks like. We've seen pictures of how stupid he looks. So that was maybe too much of a deep dive for someone that was mostly just there to see some Zelda gameplay. But how did you feel about the Zelda premiere?
The Zelda premiere?
Of gameplay, I guess.
As someone who detests Zelda.
Oh, not Zelda. Sorry, I was talking about Pokemon. I'm still in Zelda in the brain. I'm talking Pokemon.
I was like, it's cool. We can totally talk about how much I hate Zelda, but we can talk Pokemon for sure. I was very impressed with what I saw. So this is exciting. This is an exciting time to be a Pokemon fan because we're going to a whole new region. We're going to the Alola region.
But they go to new regions all the time.
But this one looks so different than anything
Hawaii.
we've been given.
We've been there.
I've never been to Hawaii. This is my virtual escape to Hawaii with pocket monsters.
Understood.
They showed off quite a bit. Well, they showed off the beginning because you wake up in your room, you're a trainer, you got to say goodbye to your mom, do the whole shebang.
Yeah.
And then right off the bat, you are battling Pokemon in tall grass, and right off the bat, we were introduced to a new Pokemon.
I felt like that grass wasn't super tall. I don't know if we have footage of it, but it wasn't super tall.
It was like
it was like 3 centimeters. It was like walking on a green.
It looked like ticks could live in it, so it's my definition of tall grass.
Maybe.
And I think the CDC's. But yeah, so we get introduced to a new Pokemon, which was Yungoos, which has now become an internet meme because people think it looked like Donald Trump.
Right.
Which
He's got
exciting.
like the weird hair.
He's got the weird hair
and
going on.
the teeth situation.
Yes. And so we got to see that play out, and that's like any other Pokemon game. I mean, the mechanics have not changed since the first game.
And he's a normal type, so
and
no
he's
one's
a
ever
normal
going to use
type, exactly. He headbutts pretty well, but that's about it.
Yeah.
And then from there, we get to meet a bunch of new characters, which were introduced to us back in May, I believe.
Right.
And so we got the new professor. We have our new rival.
Who's the new professor? Oh, is that the guy without a shirt?
That's the guy without a shirt. So Professor Oak, who's everyone's favorite, was kind of like a middle-aged dude doing his science projects. This guy is hip with the young kids. He like surfs. He's got no shirt on.
Yeah.
He
smokes a lot of
lives. Yeah, he's a typical
old surfer dude guy in Hawaii smoking weed. Sure.
And so we get to meet him for a brief minute, but we also get to meet Hala, who is this world-renowned trainer, who looks like we're gonna have a connection with, and we also get to meet Lily, who's this activist who doesn't believe in Pokemon battles, but is fascinated by Pokemon, so researches them.
Sure.
And our new rival, who we end up battling, How. And that was really cool because this is
how? Well,
H-A-U.
you probably just get your Pokemon and then you have them fight each other. It's usually
stop it, Justin. Stop it.
Oh, Justin, that was a really good joke.
Yeah. When I thought of it, I was like, "This is funny."
Let's recap this one.
that was pretty good. But during the battle sequence, you have people watching you.
How sounds like the word how, you know what I mean?
I totally got it. Yeah,
like Gordie Howe.
Like Gordie Howe.
Yeah,
Gordie
Julia's
Howe.
from Canada, so
I'm from Canada,
Yeah.
I get weird pronunciations.
He passed away, actually. Gordie Howe.
Yeah, he did. R.I.P. Gordie Howe.
Yeah. But yeah, so people are watching you during your first battle. It's very exhilarating. I think during the stream they lost. They might have won. I can't remember. But nothing spectacular there. They did, however, introduce the Battle Royale, which is a new game mode in Pokemon.
How does that work?
So basically, it is 4 players playing against each other. Each player gets to choose 3 Pokemon.
Okay.
The first player to lose all 3 Pokemon, so they have fainted.
Yeah.
Then they are out, and then the other 3 are graded based on how well they performed, how many Pokemon they took out, and how many Pokemon they had left in the game.
Okay.
And the person who has the highest score wins.
Yeah. Do Pokemon ever die? In the mythos of Pokemon.
In the theory that they do, because there's the theory that when you go to, I forget the town's name right now, but when you go to the town with the eerie music,
No, that's a different series entirely.
No, okay.
Justin.
It's not Pokemon?
Like Gengar. Gengar's dead.
Yeah, so you go to this, and there's this Pokemon, and the whole thing is like it's haunted by the ghosts of dead Pokemon.
Right.
That's the lore.
Right.
But they never confirm that.
So does Pikachu become a Gengar when Pikachu dies?
In our dreams.
Okay.
But they haven't confirmed this.
Understood.
I mean, we can reach out to Game
subtext.
Freak about it.
I watched this same demo, and none of the information you're relaying to me is striking any sort of... I'm literally sitting here wondering if, like, once you hit a certain something, your brain no longer can process Pokemon information.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it literally like comes just through me. Like,
Well, you were, not to date you, but you're, what, 3 or 4 years older than me?
I wouldn't mind that.
Give or take?
What? Yeah,
So I feel like you were beyond the age group. I was in the heart of it. I was in like middle school right when the first Pokemon came out. So I was really right in the money, the breadbasket, as it were. And you've only known a world of Pokemon, right?
I've only known a world of Pokemon, yeah.
So I think there's some element to it that we just get naturally.
But the nice thing about
I'll just chill.
Yeah,
the
just
nice
do
thing
nothing.
about Pokemon is that the mechanics never change.
Yes,
so you can
that's
pick up
true.
any Pokemon game you want, and it's
Yeah.
the same game over and over again.
I did like the fact that, I don't know if we've seen this before, that you can see the trainer standing next to the Pokemon so you know how big they are.
Yes.
Have they done that before?
I'm trying to remember the last game, and I honestly can't remember.
So like Poplio, you can
think they
just
have.
like punt him.
I'm pretty sure they
He's
have.
that small.
He is the greatest starter Pokemon, by the way, out of these 3.
I don't know how that's possible. He's a stupid clown seal. Why would you-
Rowlet is a terrible...
Rowlet is an owl with a bow tie. He's clearly a winner
it is
here.
terrible.
Justin, you're impartial. You don't care about any of this. clown with a stupid clown seal, or
An adorable clown seal.
or owl with a bow tie.
Or a mannequin that comes to life when you put a special hat on him, like in today's special. Is that an option? Can I make him a Pokemon?
Sure.
I would have to go with Ralphio.
Okay.
The one Pokemon.
Rufio.
Rufio the Pokemon.
There's
Griffin
also-
said Poplio is garbage.
Yes, I would concur with that
I'm gonna go with him
assessment.
because he's a Pokemaniac.
Yeah,
I
he
will
is.
fight Griffin on that, and Nick, and Russ.
Nobody likes Poplio except for
Nobody
you.
likes
I'm glad you
Poplio
have
but
the Defense
me.
Force going.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't hear any more about Pokemon, but I very much appreciate you coming to this program.
You're welcome.
It was
Is there
very brave
anything
of
else that you wanted to say before we let you go?
Oh, I hope not.
Talking about Pokemon?
No,
Hachi-machi.
just hashtag Poplio.
Okay.
Dude.
Julia's trying to make Poplio happen. I don't think it's gonna happen. Thank you, Julia, for joining us.
Thank you.
We are going to talk more about Pokemon just as a segue. Justin.
Big, really?
Yeah. Justin, tell me, what can I do to convince you to play a Pokemon game?
I have a rich
Have you never
life.
played them?
I have a full, rich life.
Yeah.
I've tried it many, many times. It's the same game every time.
Yeah, but one of them has Mew, and the next one has different legendaries.
Seriously, get bent. Like, no way. It's the same game over and over
You know,
again.
one of them was all about Silver Whites for Pokemon. There was
That's
literally
cool.
one of the games was that.
That's cool. You know what I'm into? Pokemon Snap.
Oh, I love that game too.
that.
Totally.
Cruise around, take the pictures.
You just throw apples
And listen,
at
don't
their heads.
tweet me about how they're different. They're not. And if you are that into it that you think they are different, like, go with God. I'm
Yeah.
sure you're super duper stoked. And this may be a very good Pokemon. I literally don't have the genetic
Sure.
material to process the information related.
Well, you do somewhat because Griffin has it, so clearly there must be some connection
That's-
deep inside of you.
So, are you telling me there's an inner Pokemon
Yes,
waiting to emerge?
waiting
We
to
can
emerge
hope.
in your genetic DNA. It's
can
just
hope.
like Assassin's Creed.
Getting the anime to see what my dad thought of Pokemon.
We have another guest via Skype joining us, and it is Tara Long. Welcome, Tara.
Hey, how are you?
Very good, very
Good.
good. Thank you for joining us.
Of course.
Tara is all the way over there in Los Angeles, California, and as I understand it, she has seen a game called Horizon Zero Dawn. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. I went and saw it with Phil Kohler this morning, who's still at an appointment right now. But first impressions, it's friggin' awesome.
Did you play it, or was it a hands-off demo?
So they had kind of a 20, 30-minute demo of it where they played it for us, and then we went hands-on with it ourselves for about 20 minutes.
Whoa.
It was one of those things where when I think the developer is playing their own game, they make it like they're so good at it.
Yeah.
It looks
Right.
insanely complicated, and you think there's no possible way I'm going to be able to do anything in this game in 20 minutes. But I was actually surprised by how easy it was to just pick up and learn. It's really like I'm always a little wary about games that have such a spectacular first showing and are really, really beautiful, because I'm like, there's no possible way this could live up to that. But this, I mean, I have to say it pretty much lived up to my expectations. I was really, really happy with it. It's just such a beautiful game. It looks incredible. The graphics, the like, I don't know if there's an official name for them. The giant robot things.
That's actually the official name.
First called them.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a fascinating story. You play as this girl who's kind of like grew up as an outcast basically, and was raised by this guy who's not her dad but has become, I guess, kind of like her spiritual father. And she's just like naturally a very inquisitive person, and the whole point of the game is her just trying to figure out like her past, where she comes from, and trying to figure out like where all these crazy fucking robot dinosaurs came from, because nobody knows. And the whole thing is that like the elders in the game basically have banned anyone from trying to figure out like what happened to the world and how these crazy robots came to take it all over.
That's not cool.
It's not cool at all, right? and she keeps asking about it, and they're like, don't go there. That's not okay.
That actually reminds me. So during during Sony's press conference when they were showing the game, throughout the press conference there was like a lot of like voiceover from her where she was like, "I'm gonna make these bombs," or maybe I'll go to this place next. Is that in the playable game that you tried?
So she does kind of talk to herself a little bit, but it is very much kind of the typical open world RPG where there are like settlements around this world, and she goes to various settlements, and every time she leaves one, they're like, "Don't go out there," and she's like, "Screw you, I'm going," and she goes anyway. But there are like NPCs all around that she talks to, with different dialogue options. I didn't, in the demo that we played, at least there wasn't a ton of like internal monologue, I guess. I don't know if that was something that was kind of highlighted more for the press conference.
Yeah, I'm sure it was fake, but I was just curious if it played into the real gameplay.
When you look at how big like your opponents are and how many of them are and how few there are of you, it seems like there would be a sense of like, and we lose this a lot in open world games, like a sense of danger. Like you do have to be careful out there, like you mentioned. Did you get that, or did you see enemies as just like, well, here's another one to knock down?
It's weird because like there are a lot of enemies in the environment, and I think the way they get around you just like nearly dying every time you step outside into the world is that it's very easy to run away from them and have them like forget that you ever existed, and B, like you can hide easily. There's kind of like a good stealth system and a lot of things in the environment that you can hide in. But like if you are within like a relatively close range of them, they a lot of times won't even notice you until you attack them first.
Yeah.
But then when you attack them, like 10 of them will rush you. And then like if it gets to be too overwhelming, you can just run away and they're like, "Oh, she's gone. It's fine."
Oh well.
I was curious, in playing it, did it remind you of any games? In watching the gameplay, it kind of reminded me of Shadows of Mordor. I don't know if there were any other games that...
I still don't know where he's getting that, Terry. He said it yesterday.
I think it looks like that. It's like an open world with like a lot of orcs running around.
Nonsense.
And
you're shooting mecha dinosaurs.
I mean,
with a
whatever.
bow.
Imagine the orcs are robots, and it's pretty much the same thing.
Imagine they're Koopas and she's Mario. Like, what are you talking about?
Oh yeah, it's like Mario. What do you think, Tara?
I think it's just like Mario.
Thank you.
Excuse me. No, I mean, I think it's comparable to like almost any open world RPG out there. Obviously, like I got a huge feeling of Skyrim just like based on the environments alone, like all the mountains and like little creeks running everywhere and trees. But as far as combat goes, it's fairly unique. The combat, I think, is with the big robotic monsters is I think absolutely the coolest aspect of it because it's very tactical. But it's also fairly straightforward.
Yeah.
So like each of those monsters, depending on how big it is, like I think one of them in our demo, like one of the huge ones, has like 93 different components on it, and you can destroy each of them. And each, based on which component you destroy, it'll affect the monster in a different way. So like if you shoot kind of in its like I guess tendons or whatever, it does a lot more damage than if you shoot like just the outside of its arm or something. Like you have to be very strategic about it.
Was this one of the like giant brontosaurus looking dudes that you were fighting?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. They looked very peaceful. Like they weren't gonna mess with you.
Actually, you know what? The brontosaurus is the one with the long neck, right?
Yeah.
No, so this wasn't that.
Okay.
This was, I don't even know like what it would be called. I don't think there's a dinosaur that looks like it.
Sure.
I think it's actually the one that they're showing in this gameplay right now.
Oh, I see. Okay. What would you describe, like if you had to name a Pokemon that looks like this, which would you say? Caterpie?
I don't like Pokemon, right? That's kind of my thing.
Yeah, Tara, you and me.
Looks like Caterpie.
You spend so much time with like the character in an open world game like this. You mentioned inquisitive. What else do we? How else would you describe the main character, who I believe her name's Alloy? Is that right? Yes.
Is it?
Alloy.
Oh, yeah. Cool. I like that.
Yeah. She's very inquisitive. She's very much like a lone ranger. She's kind of like the typical self-sufficient, I don't need no man kind of character. Like she goes out on her own a lot. The whole game, from what I understand, is basically just her doing shit and people being like, "Don't do that," and her being like, "I'm gonna do it anyway. Screw you."
I'm into that.
That's basically every quest in the game, from what I gathered.
Very, very solo. I like that. Very Gengar of her.
One cool thing that I did want to mention, because you guys are showing footage of it right now, and I didn't get to talk about it earlier. One of the coolest things that we did in our demo was this thing called overriding. They have those robotic bull-looking things that will attack you, but you can shoot them with, I forget what it's called. I have it here in my notes. Basically, it's like an arrow that kind of lassos them, and then you rein them in, and you can do this thing where you override them, which is like, it's like a very Watch Dogs thing. You're basically like hacking into their system and turning them gentle, and that is how you can like mount them and get across the map. So that's like their version of fast travel.
Okay.
Is you tame these robotic bulls and then just ride them around.
So you're saying sorry, Justin, you're saying you sort of fight them, and then at a certain point they get a little bit sleepy, and then you tame them, and then you could use them and they'll assist you.
Russ is still trying to talk about Pokemon here, and I'm not going to let him. What is it?
I don't know if these robots are capable of feeling emotions and feelings like sleepiness, but you're literally just hacking into their wiring and like getting rid of the thing that causes them to be aggressive and evil, and then they're like just cool. They're cool.
Is that the only one you could do that with? Was that one?
Yeah, as far as I know. Now, if I was able to do that with a Brontosaurus, game of the year.
Totally.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, absolutely.
Totally. I'd be totally in on that. Any closing thoughts you had about Horizon?
I'm just really excited for this, man. Like, so much more than I thought I would be. It's kind of insane.
Yeah, I think the game looks wicked. I've consistently hated pretty much all of the Killzone games, so the fact that this team is working on a game that I'm like pretty into makes me very excited. Thank you so much, Tara, for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, that game looks wicked. I would totally play that game.
Yeah, you know what? It's weird. You get inured to it sometimes, but like watching the dates on that, all the press conferences and seeing like, 2016. Okay.
Did they say that game was 2016? No, that's a 2017.
Specifically. I'm talking about holistically speaking.
Sure.
There's a lot of good stuff coming out.
Yeah,
I'm stoked.
It is a really good lineup. Yeah, especially this fall. I think has a very robust lineup, a lot of variety to it.
Madden.
Right, Madden, of course. That's FIFA. August. Looking forward to it. I was kind of weirdly surprised that they didn't show any No Man's Sky, which got pushed to August.
It's because it's not coming out. It'll never come out.
It's never going to come out.
No.
There was a part of me that was like, maybe it'll come out on VR, on Neo or something like that, but...
That would be amazing. Yeah.
I think don't wait another year. It's fine. No one cares.
Good.
Well, we're probably going to wrap up the show there. We were going to have Dave Tack on, but he is stuck in Los Angeles traffic.
We'll get him later.
And we'll hit him up tomorrow.
Because I'm super hungry, and I heard they have food upstairs.
Oh, that sounds fantastic.
That's what in my ear, they're saying, like, they got food, and you're missing out.
So, Justin, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me on your show.
It's my show, and you're just a guest. You're just a sub-guest to my ultimate guest.
I'm just here to break up fights and ignore Pokemon dialogues.
This was delightful. We will be back tomorrow. We're actually going to be live streaming and all that junk throughout the whole week. We'll have a live show, another recap show tomorrow evening, 8 p.m. Pacific.
Yeah, so hopefully
8 p.m. Eastern, sorry. Hopefully you'll join us. And you can also check us out on facebook.com/Polygon, polygon.com, all that junk.
YouTube.com/Polygon.
That one as well. And thank you to everyone out there. And we'll be back tomorrow.
See you then.
Peace out, all.
Peace out.